The work of the cross is not yet done. As Christians, we know that we're still in the vale of tears. There's still suffering. There's still evil. There's still sin. I mean, the promise of the gospel is that Christ has come and he's conquered sin and death. And yet, the last time I looked, there was still a lot of sin in the world. Hey everyone, this is Clem Harrold with the St. Paul Center. Today we're just going to look at the question of why the cross is the central symbol of our Christian faith. And I don't know if you've ever sat there and thought about this question, but for those of us who are Christians, for those of us who are Catholics, it's like we're very used to seeing the cross. Maybe we have it in, depending on where we go to school, in our classrooms. Maybe we have it around our house, have it, on a rosary beads hanging from our car. It's like we have this symbol of the cross everywhere. But it's worth sometimes pausing to ask, why? Why is the cross the central symbol of our faith? Because if you think about it, as Christians, we're supposed to be about the good news. We're supposed to be about the idea that Christ came and conquered sin and death, and the resurrection is the reality that we believe in and that we hope in. And yet, for some reason, the symbol that we choose to make our focus, that kind of defines our faith, it's not the empty tomb. It's not something like, I don't know, a lamb, that would be nice, symbolizing Christ, gentle, it'd be great. But no, it's the cross. And for Catholics, it's actually often a crucifix. It's the image of a guy bleeding and bruised, his body broken, hanging from a tree. That's kind of strange, right? It's kind of odd to think about. Why is that the symbol of our faith? And it's actually, if you look into the history of this, it gets even stranger, because in the early church, it actually took several centuries, like 300-400 years before the early church was even comfortable portraying Christ on the cross. So in the early church, often the symbols that they were using, it was things like a fish or an anchor, different symbols that were more benign, more kind of safe, that were less offensive to the senses. This obviously is in a world that was kind of scarred by the memory of crucifixion. For early Christianity, crucifixions were still commonplace around the empire. And so for them, there was this real sense of kind of trepidation. The idea that, could we really, we believe God died on a cross, but could we really portray that? Could we really put that into our art? Could we really make images of this? I think they understood in many ways better than we do what a kind of scandalous and shocking thing this is. And so it wasn't until the kind of 5th, 6th century that you finally have the church coming to terms with using the cross in its imagery. And today we bear the legacy of that. But again, we have the question, why? Why is it the cross that we choose? Why not the empty tomb? And I would suggest to you that the answer is, in a sense, pretty simple. The reason the cross is the central symbol of our faith is because this life is the cross. The work of the cross is not yet done. As Christians, we know that we're still in the vale of tears. There's still suffering. There's still evil. There's still sin. I mean, the promise of the gospel is that Christ has come and he's conquered sin and death. And yet, the last time I looked, there was still a lot of sin in the world. There was still a lot of death in the world. There's still a lot of sin in my own life. And I believe in Christ. And I ask him for his help. And yet I'm still broken. I'm still fallen. So there's a sense in which, for us as Christians, is that we believe in the resurrection and our hope is rooted in the resurrection. But we also know that in this present life, we're still in this place of exile. We're still going through that exodus, the experience of the Israelites in the desert. We know that heaven, the promised land of heaven, has been opened up to us because of what Christ did on the cross. But we also know that we're not home yet. We know that there's still this journey to go through, a journey that does involve pain, a journey that's going to involve coming to terms with our own human weakness, a journey that's still going to involve death, our own death, the death of our loved ones. So why do we have the cross as our central image? Why did the church come to adopt this? Because the cross sums up so much of what this life continues to be about. It's a life of acknowledging our suffering, not trying to dumb it down, not trying to say, Christ conquered it, so therefore it's all vanished, because it hasn't. No, it's saying what Christ did is he transformed our suffering, and he soon is going to end it. But before then, he's first going to use it. He's going to use your suffering, he's going to use my suffering, and he's going to sanctify it. And he's going to turn it into this kind of instrument, this conduit, this channel of love. He's going to use our suffering to purify, to sanctify the world, and to one day bring us home into the promised land of heaven. So we continue as Christians to hold the cross in our lives. St. Jose Maria Escrivá, the founder of Opus Dei, had a beautiful line. He says that we need to hold the cross in the center of our souls. I think that's what we're called to as Christians. Not this kind of wishy-washy faith where we say everything's going to be easy, everything's going to be happy-clappy. It's not. That is not reality. That is not history. That is not human life. There's still going to be pain. There's still going to be hardship. But we look to the cross and we know that there's nothing we experience in this life which God hasn't taken on. There's no shame I've ever felt. There's no pain I've ever experienced. There's no loss that I've ever gone through that wasn't present to Christ, present to God himself as he hung there on the cross. So we make the cross our symbol. We use that to inspire us, to give us the hope to keep going and to know that Christ has redeemed the world and that all this stuff that we go through, the things in life that can be so frustrating and confusing, he's given them an eternal meaning. That's the good news. That's the good news of Christianity. So if you have any thoughts on this, any questions, I encourage you to please use the comment box. If you have pushback or if you want to agree or disagree, feel free to do that. Thanks a lot for listening, and God bless.